What is going on, guys? So today I have something really cool for you guys. I've been following this little mini computer since 2012 or so called Raspberry Pi, and they just released their third model, the Raspberry Pi 3, about 2 months ago, I believe, February sometime. So I decided to invest in it, and it came in this little teeny tiny box, so you can tell it's a very, very small computer. It costs $35, but the shipping is about $10, so it actually costs about $45. But there's all kinds of cool different things you can do with the Raspberry Pi. There's all kinds of different Linux-based operating systems out there that have different purposes. However, I am a gamer and I have gaming needs, so there's actually an operating system called RetroPie, which will emulate just about any retro gaming device or console out there. You can emulate like up to 50 different devices, so all kinds of different possibilities. But instead of talking about it, let's actually take a look at the Raspberry Pi itself and then take a look at RetroPie operating system. So here's what the Raspberry Pi 3 looks like. And the first thing we're going to do is look at the size of it. Compared to my hand, it's fairly small. And here I have some chapsticks so we can compare the size of the two. And as you can see, the Raspberry Pi is just still slightly longer than the two chapsticks. So it's fairly small for a computer. And now we're going to kind of go over all the parts of the Raspberry Pi. Here we have the processor, which is basically the brain of the Raspberry Pi. Here we have a chip that manages the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi of the Raspberry Pi. And on the bottom here we have our USB port, which powers the Raspberry Pi. Basically it's an Android Type B plugin. Here we have our HDMI port, which puts the video onto our monitors and TVs. Here we have our 3.5mm audio jack. And let's just kind of flip this thing around. Here's a side view of it before we do that though. So on this side here we have our Ethernet port, which allows us to connect to the internet and to our server. And we have our 4 USB ports. And on the back side of the Raspberry Pi, we have our micro SD card slot holder. And right now I have a 16 gigabyte micro SD card in the thing, which is plenty for all my ROMs and stuff. And that is a quick overview of the Raspberry Pi. The RetroPie operating system natively supports both PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 controllers. I only have a PlayStation 3 controller, however, I can say that both the Bluetooth connection and the wired connection work flawlessly on the Raspberry Pi. But if you're going to do any retro gaming, I highly recommend getting the USB version of the Super Nintendo controller, as it is perfect for all your retro gaming needs. It's perfect for, obviously, Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System, your Game Boy Advance emulator, Game Boy Color, anything. I highly recommend it. So the last thing we're going to take a look at before we get into the RetroPie operating system is this aftermarket case I bought for the Raspberry Pi, since it just comes with the guts. As you can see, we have access to all our parts, and on the bottom we have access to our SD card slot, as well as the USB and Ethernet ports on the back side. And now that we've kind of looked at everything, let's start diving into the RetroPie operating system. So I just turned on my Raspberry Pi, and it's starting to boot RetroPie, as you can see from this lovely image we have right here. The boot time usually takes approximately 30 seconds or so I figured I'd take the time to tell you guys that all the ROMs you're about to see in RetroPie, I actually own the physical copies for. I have personally pulled the ROMs from each cartridge and transferred them from my computer to my Raspberry Pi. So RetroPie just finished booting up, and as you can see we have a horizontal bar basically which shows all our different options. We have Dreamcast, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, so on and so forth. Where's my favorite? Super Nintendo. Basically what RetroPie does is, even though it supports up to 50 or 50 more consoles and devices and all kinds of stuff, it only shows what you actually have games for. So if I don't have a game for, I don't know, try and think of a console, Sega Genesis for example. Since I don't have any games for that at the moment, it's not going to show up here because I don't have any games on here, which is kind of cool, and it makes it less cluttered, which is nice. So we're going to actually start with the Super Nintendo because that's one of my favorite consoles of all time. So as you can see, we have a big list of games on the right hand side, and on the left hand side we have the box art for the game, all kinds of information like the release date, the developer, how many players can play, last time I played it, which was 9 minutes ago, and the times I've played. And you can just scroll through and see all the different images and whatnot. We're going to go back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers because that was one of my favorite games growing up as a child. So we're going to start it up. You might get a no signal thing just because it's kind of converting to the game. However, what's really cool about the Raspberry Pi is it upscales the resolution to an HD TV. So right now I am playing on a 32-inch HD TV in 1080p resolution. Obviously this game was developed or programmed to be, what was the Super Nintendo? I think it was 480p resolution. Not 100% sure, but use the old yellow, red, and white composite plugins. And now it's playing on an HD TV, so you will get some pixelation. However, it's really cool that it actually shows up on an HD TV. So we're going to kind of look at this a little bit. We're going to choose Kimberly because she's awesome. And we're going to let it kind of load in real quick. And you guys will see that the Raspberry Pi actually flies through this Super Nintendo game without any error. There's no audio hiccups, there's no visual hiccups, so the frame rate is always consistent. I'm not really sure what the frame rate was for the Super Nintendo, probably 30 frames a second. Not really sure though. Maybe 60? I have no idea. I'm just going to kill this purple guy real quick, and once we're done, we just hit start and select on the Super Nintendo controller I'm using, which will back us out of the game. And you might get another no signal image. It's just backing out and going back to the operating system. And so here we are at the operating system once again, and we're going to back out and go try another console. So we're going to go to Game Boy Advance. That's another pretty good one. So we're going to open that up. So I took us to the Game Boy Advance section because I really want to show you how awesome this thing is at upscaling these games to an HD TV. The original resolution to a Game Boy Advance was like 240 by 160 pixels, I believe. So it was on a tiny screen, and we're playing on a bigger screen which has a lot more pixels. So we're going to start my favorite game of all time ever, Golden Sun. As you can see, times played 0, but I pulled the save file from my cartridge over, which was pretty cool. So we're going to let it boot up real quick, and we have our old classic Game Boy greeting, which is pretty cool. So you can see it is pixelated, but it actually really doesn't look that bad once we actually start playing. This game was always loud, so hopefully it doesn't like go over my voice. I started a new game, but we're going to play one of my old files real quick, just so you can kind of see something really cool. So we're going to run and hopefully find an enemy. It is pixelated, but you can still, all the words are legible. The top row says Isaac, Garrett, Ivan, Maya, and HP 709 for Isaac, PP is 171. The first thing is Synergy at the bottom, so it's legible. And you gotta remember this was meant for a very, very, very tiny screen, and it's being blown up to an HD TV, which is pretty impressive. So we're gonna kill this guy real quick. As you can see, it's just chugging right through, no problems, no frame rate drops. It's just powering through all these graphics at the moment. All these little supers going on, and the guy's dead. I'm not going to save, so we're just going to back out. And there is one more thing I want to show you guys before I end this video. So we're going to go to, where is it? Ports, the ports section. You can actually install Kodi on this thing, which is really, really cool. And if you guys don't know what Kodi is, I'm about to show you guys. For those of you that do not know what Kodi is a really, really cool media center out there. And as you can see, we have different options. We have pictures, videos, music, programs. So basically, you can put all these different movies, TV shows, music, pictures onto your Raspberry Pi and view them from Kodi. Or, although this can be illegal, you can set it up so it can stream just about anything you want to for free. So we're going to go to videos and add-ons, and we're going to start up Exodus, which allows you to stream just about anything. I personally only watch movies that I actually own on DVD or Blu-ray, but I'm going to show you guys kind of how this works. So we're going to movies first, and go to most popular. And just to let you guys know, today is May 11th, and it is 5 days, I believe, after Civil War came out, and it's already able to be streamed. Basically, what Exodus does is it pulls all the different sites that have streamable content and compiles it into a list so you can choose where you want to stream it from and in what resolution that is offered. I do own Deadpool, so I will show you guys this one because I own it. It usually takes about 20 to 30 seconds to compile all the different streaming sites. However, this is going a little bit quicker than usual. But yeah, I mean, you can just basically stream just about anything. I mean, Jungle Book's been out in theaters for maybe three weeks now. I don't know the exact date it came out, but it's already able to be streamed here. But now that it's done compiling, so as you can see, we have different options from different sites. A bunch of standard definitions. We have an HD here, which I believe is 720 resolution or 720p resolution, and 1080p would be listed as 1080p. But since this is a newer movie, I believe only 720 is offered at the moment from this streaming site in specific. I'm not going to show a whole lot of this because I do not want YouTube to flag it. Oh, resume. Cool. So it actually remembers where I was last at. I didn't know that. But as you can see, we're streaming Deadpool. Pretty good resolution, 720. Audio's good. Streamed just fine.
Don't make the same mistakes I did.
It works just fine through Wi-Fi. Right now I'm using Ethernet because I am plugged right into my computer. But I'm going to back out because I do not want YouTube to flag me for playing Deadpool. So RetroPie on the Raspberry Pi is just one of many things you can do on the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi has so much potential, and just be able to put all this retro gaming emulators onto a little mini computer for $35 and play them flawlessly is amazing. Obviously, you're not going to be able to play games like GameCube games, and probably like half the Nintendo 64 games work and the other half don't. You won't be able to emulate PS2 games, but that's not the point. This is really impressive for $35, and you're able to stream just about any retro game out there. And that concludes my video on the RetroPie, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and make sure you guys please like and subscribe the video, and stay tuned for more videos in the future. Peace.